Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Pause with Phil. Hope everybody's having a good Wednesday so far. Good to be here with you all today. Glad that you're all tuning in. I'm using this new software again that I'm excited about. This software gives me the opportunity to engage with the audience, those who are in the chat room, and look forward to having those conversations as we're waiting for some folks maybe to tune in here. Uh, So this is Pause with Phil. We do this every Wednesday from 2 to 3, and this really helps me to set aside a time to intentionally work on my wellness and take the time out for myself. Part of the reason why I think this is so helpful, especially in the times that we're kind of living in now with the high levels of stress that's going on. This gives a chance for people to just really kind of unwind and be intentional like I am, and taking the time out and just kind of tune in to how they are feeling, and maybe find out if there is some stress that they might be carrying around and what to do with that. And that's some of the stuff that I would like to talk about today is how do we deal with our stress? Something I brought up in the past, uh, before. It's been a little while, and so I thought today would be a good opportunity to kind of share some of those things and talk about some of those things again about what do we do with our stress. There's different coping mechanisms that we can use, and it's good to find useful coping mechanisms that we can use to manage our stress. And so that's some stuff that I'm going to be sharing today is these coping mechanisms. How do we handle our stress? But first, I'd like to ask you out there, how do you feel when you're stressed? What do you feel like when you're stressed? I think it's important for us to find good descriptors. Not just to say, "Hey, I feel stressed," but really narrow it down. How exactly do you feel? When I feel stressed, a lot of times my mind can feel cluttered. I might have some trouble thinking. I might get impatient, and then you can even see how it can affect you in your body, right? So your heart beats fast, or you might get hot and sweaty. You might tense up. You might notice that the palms of your hands get kind of clammy and sweaty. And so the way we feel about our stress, we can even talk about it and narrow it down exactly about how we feel and what's going on inside of us. And so you might feel impatient when you get stressed. You might feel rushed, like you don't have enough time. You might feel irritable. Maybe you feel like you're defeated or you're imperfect. If you're not able to get the things done that you want to get done because your stress levels are so high. Maybe your blood feels warm when it's going through your arms and veins. Maybe that's something that you pick up on and that you notice. Maybe you feel like you're real panicky and your anxiety is real high when you feel stressed out. And now I kind of want us to turn our mind and think of what it feels like when we're calm, when we're not stressed. Think about what you feel like when you're calm. Maybe you can describe it in a color. Maybe there's a color that comes to your mind of what it feels like when you're calm. Maybe it's a light blue or some color that you would attach to feeling calm versus as when you're feeling stressed. Maybe it's a shape. Maybe you can attach a shape there to feeling calm. What does that look like in your mind, in your mind's eye? What does that look like? The color of calmness, the shape of calmness. Try thinking about that there. If you're able to put that in the chat, maybe you can describe that about what comes to your mind when you think of calmness. What comes to your mind with a color or shape of calmness? You start thinking about that, and maybe you just notice too when you start thinking about calmness, you begin to feel a little bit more calm because you're picturing a color. You're able to attach a color with it or a shape. Maybe you start realizing that your breathing starts getting slower and you start feeling more relaxed. This is what I think of when it comes to practicing the pause. When I choose mindfulness, I can think of a place that relaxes me. Maybe you've got a place that you can bring to mind. Maybe it's the beach or maybe it's waves. I see Erica puts a circle for calm. Yeah, Erica, that's kind of what comes to my mind too with calmness. That's what I started thinking of as a circle. Maybe there's a color that you want to even attach to that shape. And maybe that's something that can help bring some of that calmness in our life. Like I said, with everything that's going on around us, it can be hard sometimes to get to that calmness. But I think with practicing the pause, and like I'm going to be sharing today, that there's different coping mechanisms that we can use to try to help us get back and to center ourselves and to find that calm place. And so maybe there's a particular place that we can bring to our mind about what helps us to be calm. Maybe it's the beach. That's one that I hear a lot. If you're a beach person, maybe it's the waves or the sand. I know there's uh, different places that comes to mind that people really like to go to. Maybe you're a mountain person, maybe you're a beach person, whatever that place is that really helps you to find some of that peace. You can bring that to your mind. I've got a hammock on the back of my porch, and I love to use that. And when it gets nice and cool in the fall, and that's one of the places that I can kind of go to and just unwind. And so by bringing that to my mind, by bringing maybe it's a color or a shape to calmness, maybe it's a place, maybe bringing all those to your mind, it can help you to get uh, more in tune to a place of calmness. I think that's a good coping mechanism. If we're feeling stressed, if we're feeling our body, we really feel stress in our body, don't we? We can feel kind of fluttered. We can feel frustrated. Our heart beats a lot faster. And so just going from, let's say if we attach a color there to our stress, maybe it's a dark red or maybe even a shape to that stress. If we recognize that we're feeling that stress, if we're feeling overwhelmed, and uh, maybe we can just take that time just to be intentional and say, okay, I feel this way. Not just saying that you feel stressed, but actually be more exact with how you're feeling. I'm feeling stressed and my mind feels cluttered. I'm having trouble thinking. I'm feeling stressed and I'm feeling impatient. I'm feeling rushed. I feel like my blood is boiling. It's warm going through my veins and in my arms. My heart's beating fast. I'm starting to sweat. My palms are getting clammy and sweaty. And so if we get into that state, we start being intentional about how we are feeling at that exact moment. We use our words, and then we can say, okay, I feel this way. I recognize it. Now, how do I get to a place of calm? And then we can bring those things that we just discussed to our mind about a color or a shape or a place of calmness. We start bringing that to our mind. I think it's very important. And I found that it was very important in recovery, with my emotions being so high, and it seemed like they were just like a roller coaster, that I needed to find ways that I could really manage my stress levels. And part of that was learning how to have healthy coping mechanisms in my life. How do I manage stress? And that's something that I'd like to bring to our attention today, is how we can be better at managing our stress. And so if you're feeling stressed today, I'm glad that you're tuning in. And even if you're not, we can kind of put this into our toolbox, and we'll have this for later when we are underneath that stress. And so what we learn here and the things I want to share today is relaxation techniques, and we'll talk about time management and effective ways to deal with our stress. Stress is a very common experience. I notice too, even when I do some of these classes, when I teach, I've gotten to a routine where to kind of help alleviate some of that stress or anxiety, I found that teas. I found teas to be really helpful. There's some teas that are out there that will help, bring some relaxation and decrease stress, and so I've found that tea really helps. I found that creating a good environment, a safe space, can be helpful. Just where you can kind of tune out, you can turn off distractions and just kind of tune out the world, and a place that you can go to just to find that serenity and find that peace. And I have to be intentional about creating that. So I've got candles here that I light that's got a nice aroma to it. I believe in aromatherapy. Same thing with the tea. I can smell the tea and drink it, and I get that warm sensation as I drink that tea. And the same thing with the herbs that they use inside the tea can help bring relaxation. So I found different things that I can help that helps with my stress. And I try to share some of those things here with Pause with Phil and this practicing the pause with Phil. And so today, I want to kind of bring to our attention these coping mechanisms, how we manage our stress, how we can effectively manage our stress. See, Erica's got the color that comes to her mind when she thinks of, I guess, when it pertains to calmness, is a sage green. I like that. I like that. Yeah, green is one of my favorite colors, and that's a good color to bring to mind. And so, with these coping mechanisms, with dealing with our stress, it's important to find what is healthy coping methods and what's unhealthy. And I spent so much of my life using unhealthy coping mechanisms that caused more harm to myself and caused harms to other, mainly my addiction. And so, um, there's these patterns that can be overcome. That's these unhealthy coping methods. These can all be overcome, but with time. We need to learn how to apply these effective coping mechanisms and begin to practice it. That's why I entitle, each Wednesday here is practicing the pause with Phil. It's not something that we just do one time and we just become masters of it, but something that we have to continuously do. I think the more we do it over time, the more easier it gets. And so, if you're needing help with maybe learning some of these coping mechanisms, some of these coping methods, we're there at the R3 Recovery Center. We're there to help. We're there to support, and we know how difficult it is, especially with early on recovery, is kind of managing your emotions, managing stress, and learning healthy ways to cope with those. And so we there at the R3 Recovery Center, we're there to support. And I'm so glad that Wilkes now has this recovery center that offers this type of support and offer these trainings and teachings. And I'm so glad that I'm able to do this each Wednesday and kind of bring it out there to the community because learning how to deal with our stress is so important. It can help with the way we feel. It can help with further physical ailments down the road. And so it is good to learn how to effectively deal with our stress. And so one of the ways that we can do to deal with our stress is to decrease stress at its source. Decrease stress at its source. If you have a piece of paper, maybe you want to write some of these down, some of these coping mechanisms, things to look out for. And that first one is it's to decrease stress at its source. What does that mean? Well, it means if you're in a relationship and that's causing stress, maybe it's working on setting boundaries or becoming more assertive may be helpful. And that's something I had to learn early in recovery. You know, uh, I wasn't well equipped to handle conflicts and confrontation. And, a lot of times that does happen with your immediate family, the people that's closest to you. And so I had to learn how to set those boundaries. I can remember one time getting into an argument there. And as I was working a 12-step program, I knew it was in my best interest and in the person also involved who this conflict was going on with, that the best thing that I could do was to set a boundary and kind of step back. It's not like I was uh, avoiding having the conversations, those needed conversations, but I knew that boundary for me at that time was to take a step back, and so I began to be assertive and saying, "Okay, we can have this conversation, but let's do it at a later time when I'm at a better place, a better place in my mind to deal with it." And so I learned that going, whether it's to 12-step meetings or doing what I could do for my own wellness, that it would put me in a better position to have some of those conversations. And so part of having healthy coping mechanisms dealing with our stress is to decrease stress at its source. And so, if it is a relationship that might be causing you stress, maybe that's something that you want to kind of look out for is setting boundaries. How can you set those healthy boundaries and maybe even becoming more assertive, which can also be helpful. It too, if too much demands are on your time, maybe if that's causing you stress, it may be beneficial to work on setting priorities and limits. We don't, like I found early on in recovery, it was good for me not to have too much going on. Uh, and that's something that's shared, in recovery spaces is that you don't want to tackle on too much at one time. I remember right when I began my recovery journey, I kind of had the sense to kind of tackle the world, right? So I wanted to quit smoking. I wanted to quit drinking coffee. And luckily, I had some good support around me that said, don't chew off too much right now. Don't try to tackle too much right now. Uh, just do what you can. And some of these other things, later on will come. But don't try to do too much. And I think that's good advice, especially early on in recovery. We might have all these lofty goals. They could be good goals, and all that. But I think if we try to do too much at one time, we can really be easily to get burned out. And so we want to make sure that we don't have too many demands on our time because that can definitely cause stress. And so it's beneficial to kind of work these things out and set priorities and set limits. Those are some key words right there: is priorities and limits. What do you prioritize? What can you put as first things first in your life? For me, it's got to be recovery. That's the question that I like to ask myself each day: is what am I doing today for my recovery? And you can ask the same thing about your wellness. What am I doing today for my wellness? Are you putting your wellness first? There's something that's been said, many times: is if we're not good to ourselves, we can't be good to others. And so that really is learning how to do that. How can I treat myself well so I can be there for others, especially if you're in a field where you are constantly working with others and others are demanding of your time. It's important that we be in our best health and best wellness there so we can handle uh, some of those issues as they arise, so we can be there with other people. And so those are some key words there that we really need to kind of take a look at: is priorities and limits. Do I know what my priorities are? Am I setting my priorities? And do I have my limits? And do I know how to work with those? Do I know how to deal with those? Do I know how to kind of stay in my lane? Not really venture out so much, but stay in my lane, knowing what my priorities are and knowing what my limits are, so I can be there for others. I can be true to myself and really practice my best self care and wellness, and then cut back on things that you're able to let go for the same time. Uh, do you kind of can you kind of see what some things that you can cut out of your life if you feel like you got too much going on? Is there something that you need to kind of cut back on, or some changes that you need to make? Those are things to really look at if you're feeling just overwhelmed, if you're feeling just stressed out all the time. Maybe there's some things that you uh, need to examine and see that you can let go of. Some of the first stress management exercises you may want to try involve dealing directly with sources of your stress. And so, looking at the sources of your stress, like I said, there's some key words. There's boundaries, priorities, and limits. Do you know your boundaries? Do you know what your priorities are? And do you know where your limits are? I see Chad's here. Thanks for joining, Chad. We're talking about some stress management exercises, things we can do to healthfully cope with our stress. We just talked about the first one was decreasing stress at its source. Whether it might be a relationship or maybe taking on too many things at once. And some of those key words that we looked at is boundaries, priorities, and limits. And I was sharing about, and how early on recovery, I really had to learn some of those things like conflicts, confrontations. And, a lot of times it's the people that's closest to us that we begin practicing learning how to deal with those stress and deal with confrontations and all that. And I had to learn to do that in early recovery. I had to learn how to step back and create those boundaries and eventually go back to those conversations. Not just running from those conversations, but doing it when I was at a better place to deal with it. Where I'd be under less stress. And so that's what we're talking about today is uh, learning how to deal, with our stress. Hope you have a good dentist appointment there, Erica, and thanks for tuning in. That's something I had to learn with is how to effectively handle my stress, and that's something that I continually do. That's what I was talking about just a little bit ago. Is I have to ask myself the question: what am I doing for my recovery today? Same thing with wellness, right? What am I doing for my wellness today? And this is something that I intentionally have to do. I have to intentionally take this time out for myself. Like I was sharing just a little bit ago, we often hear if we're not good to ourselves, how can we be good to others, right? And so, especially in a field where we deal with people, you know, uh, we can be in dangers of burning out if we try to tackle too much. So we really have to be aware of what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, and by practicing the pause, by tuning in to how we feel and looking at our stress and learning these healthy coping mechanisms, we can be better equipped, to do the work that we're involved in. And so that's one of the ways to do it is decreasing stress at its source. Is by setting boundaries, setting priorities, and knowing our limits. Another way that we can cope with our stress is physical activity. Physical activity. Anybody got some physical activity that you love to do that really helps alleviate your stress? Exercise is so good. The reason being is that physical activity helps to use up the excess energy produced by the stress response. And so when we get in this stress response, it could be fight or flight mode, right? Where the body is ready for intense physical activity. This is something that we are given, right? Just by being human. We're not in the caveman days where we had this stress response with the big old woolly mammoth that comes out, but this was given to us, to be able to use up, right? And so when we get underneath the stress, it's good to have exercise to help alleviate some of that excess energy. It gets us back into that right calm state of being, right? The place that we can really do well at and thrive in. And so when we're in flight or fight mode, the body is ready for intense physical activity. And so by exercising, the stress response runs its course and the body returns to a physiological normal. And so you might feel that when you get stressed out. And we were talking about that, when we first began. How do you feel when you're stressed? You ever notice what your body is feeling? For me, a lot of times when I get stressed, my mind feels cluttered. I have trouble thinking, right? I might feel impatient. I might feel irritable, rushed that I don't have enough time. I can feel, like my body getting warm, like my blood is boiling. I can feel like my heart is beating fast. These are things that your body does underneath this stress response. And so by exercising, that can help us. That can help us when we're feeling amped up. That's a great word that I've learned about describing that state of being. You feel amped up, right? And so exercising can help us return to that normal, that place that we really want to be in, that place of calmness and peace where we can really thrive and be at our best. Another way that we can deal with our stress is creativity. Does anybody have some hobbies out there that they like to do? Really finds like it's a good stress outlet for you? Or some hobbies that you are doing now that really helps with your stress? Hobbies and creative outlets can be excellent stress relievers. And I'm a big fan of Mr. Rogers. I kind of dating myself there. If you've watched Mr. Rogers, he talked about some of these things, and he would teach kids, children, how to deal with stress even at an early age. right? He talked about, what do you do when you feel mad? What do you do when you feel stressed out? And he would talk about whether it be pounding the clay. You might remember as a kid, you had clay, and you'd mold it and stuff like that. But you'd also pound it and kind of do it. That's a creative outlet, to help alleviate stress. Some of these hobbies that we might have, and maybe it's working with wood, or working with clay, or doing some of those things along those lines, or maybe it's playing a musical instrument. I remember Mr. Rogers would say when he felt angry that he would pound the keys on the piano. It was a good way that he found that, hey, it's okay to feel that anger, but what do you do with it? What do you do with those feelings? And he began learning that, hey, he could do it on the piano. He began pounding the keys. And I think that's so important. It's so vital for me in early recovery. What do you do with those feelings? What do you do with those emotions? What do you do with that stress? What are those healthy coping mechanisms? Because I knew when I got into a bad place, that place of being all stressed out and angry and irritable, that drink or drug looked like a good option for me. And so I needed to learn ways of how to deal with those emotions, how to deal with the stress. And these are the things that we're talking about today, is what are some coping mechanisms? What are some healthy coping mechanisms that we can use, that we can implement into our life and practice to get the best results? And some of those things are boundaries and priorities and limits. It's when you feel amped up, you can exercise, or you can do a hobby there. What are some hobbies and creative outlets that you like to do that are good stress relievers for you? You might want to mention those there in a comment, and it can help somebody else out. Maybe they're looking for a hobby or some way, to learn how to deal with their own stress. I like music. That's something I do. Or I like to go for a walk in the woods, a hike, or maybe it's taking out my Miata. I got a Miata that I can take the top down, and I can drive around town. I know uh, Chad there, not to put him on the spot. He likes to. He can. He's got something that he can kind of drive around town and feel the air and the breeze and all that too. So that might be one of his stress relievers there. What are some of your stress relievers that you like to use to really help you with those things? Another important thing for us to do there for a coping mechanism with stress is to take care of yourself. We've been talking about some of that already. Take care of yourself. That's to treat yourself well. A lot of times at the end of this course, of practicing the pause, I'll close with be well. That's something that we need to make sure that we're doing. You know, is to take care of ourselves, to treat yourself well. That's wellness, really. Treat yourself well. That's a good way to cope with stress, by treating yourself well. And so, if you have good physical and emotional reserves, you're better prepared to handle stress that comes your way. And so, by being intentional, by whether it's practicing meditation or these relaxation techniques, by doing this on a constant basis, you're better equipped to handle stress when it comes. And so, if you're treating yourself well, if you're being intentional with it, if you're doing that in a good way to cope with stress, you're in a better place to handle that stress when it comes. And so, do things that you enjoy. Treat yourself. Talk kindly to yourself. In other words, treat yourself like a friend. How often does it seem like uh, we're always doing for others instead of doing for ourselves? You know, it's important to make sure that we are treating ourselves well, that we're taking care of ourselves, that we're practicing wellness and taking good care of ourselves, that we're treating ourselves like a friend. Another good way to cope with our stress, to handle our stresses, with time management. Time management. How well are you at doing time management? You're managing your time effectively. And managing your time effectively can significantly decrease stress. We avoid the trap of overscheduling by prioritizing tasks and putting free time into your schedule. And that's something that we need to intentionally do. When you make your schedule, make sure you prioritize your tasks and put free time into your schedule. That's being intentional. That's creating that space. Creating that space for yourself. That's what we do here at Pause with Phil. We're intentional with our time. We're intentional with taking time out for ourselves. That's why it's the pause, because we're being intentional there. We're prioritizing our task and we're putting free time into our schedule. We're being intentional by creating the space. Another thing to do to help with coping with our stress, a healthy coping mechanism, is decrease procrastination. That was something I was so bad at. I was so bad at with procrastination. I was constantly putting things off, constantly putting things off. And so naturally, by putting things off, I began experiencing more stress. And so a way to help alleviate our stress is by decreasing our procrastination. Procrastination can add to our stress. When things are put off, you're always working under pressure, which is stressful. And so if we use a schedule, begin creating a schedule, and that's something that I was kind of surprised myself to actually do now, is I write things down. I write down what I want to do in the day. Before I never really did that. But now I do little small things. I have like a little notepad that I write things down on, and it helps me to get things done. I'm able to prioritize, which we've been talking about, and it helps me to schedule things that I want to get done. And so, using some type of schedule, being organized in that way, uh, if we have that, we stick to it, then we can reward ourselves. Right? It's good to reward yourself. And these things help to prevent procrastination. When you write things down, I haven't heard about it, and I've talked about it before here, is when we write things down, I think I've heard that we're 75% more apt to do those things just by writing it down. And before, I think that was my problem, is I tried to just do everything in my head. But now I've gotten to the point where I like and I enjoy writing things down, because that even helps me to feel better about myself, right? I've accomplished something with my time. I've accomplished something in the day, and then I reward myself. So I did my best job for the day, and I did my best. And then, it's healthy to reward ourselves. And those are some ways that can help us with procrastination. Another uh, tip, coping mechanism to help alleviate our stress, is sleep. It's a good sleep pattern, making sure that you're getting enough sleep. Even a few hours of missed sleep affects our memory and concentration significantly. And so it's important to make sure that we are getting enough sleep. And that's something that I've heard time and time again, is, there's difficulty sleeping. That people have difficulty sleeping, and I'm sure that causes a lot of stress if you're not getting enough sleep, because just a few hours of sleep can significantly affect your memory and your concentration. And then we were talking about rewards just a few minutes ago. What do we mean by rewards? What do I mean by rewards? That you reward yourself. When you see yourself doing some of these things, reward yourself. Plan to treat yourself after completing a task. Rewards don't have to be extravagant. A reward can be a simple, small treat, like watching a movie, or taking a warm bath, or playing a game, or listening to music. And the number one relaxation strategy for stress management is relaxation. Relaxation is helpful because it reverses the stress response. A relaxation is a very effective way to calm your mind and relax your body. And so there's different relaxation techniques. One I discovered just a few minutes ago, before I began teaching this today, was something that's called, and I might have to say it quietly because Alexa heard me last time, is progressive muscle relaxation. I'd say it a little bit softer so she wouldn't hear me. Last time Alexa heard me, she's there in the kitchen, right? If you're familiar with Alexa, I probably shouldn't say her name too many times, because then she's going to start tuning in, and then she might pick up and just start randomly talking over there. But I said that progressive muscle relaxation, and she chimed in, and I found out that it's even on my Alexa. So I said I've said her name probably 5 or 6 times, so she's probably really tuning in now. But I found out it's on my Alexa. So uh, that's something that can be done. It's a good way to relax. It's a relaxation technique. Another thing is visualization. Visualization is another relaxation technique. And guided meditation. I'm a big fan of guided meditation. I even really like group meditation. Group meditation where I know with everything going on now, there might not be too many of those that's occurring now, but man, I love group meditation when you get there as a group and begin with a couple readings and just the energy it feels like with group meditation. It really helped me with early on recovery to get my thoughts uh, together, and it really helped with my emotions and all those things. It was just so beneficial there in recovery. And so that's why I find that it's so important to begin sharing with our community, to begin sharing with those in recovery, is learning how to deal with our stress, learning how to deal with our emotions, finding these healthy coping mechanisms. And relaxation, like I said, is the number one strategy for stress management. Relaxation. And there's different things that can be implemented in our life to help us to do that. And so I shared a few of them today. Relaxation is number one. Relaxation is number one. And like I said, I love guided meditation. Those are some things that are beneficial for stress management, these stress management exercises. And so when you feel more relaxed, you will be able to be more productive. And don't we want to be more productive in our life? So that's that true state of being that I found that discovered that we really want to be in, where I really want to be in. I want to be in that place of calmness and serenity and peace. I want to have that. I want to experience that. That was the main draw for me there in recovery, is finding and obtaining that peace, knowing that it's there. Because for the longest time, I looked for that peace in the bottle of a bottle or a pill bottle or some drug that I never got. I never got that peace. It was when I began pursuing recovery and began learning about myself and began practicing these wellness principles and picking up these wellness tools. I began to learn about this peace and began to experience it in my life. And so when we're more relaxed, we're in that state of being of calmness and serenity and peace. When we're more relaxed, we'll be able to be more productive. And that's what I want to do. I want to use my time wisely. I want to be more productive. I want to get the most out of the day. And so even listening to guided relaxation is often helpful for learning to relax. And that's what we want to do here. We're learning together. We're practicing together. We're practicing the pause. And so relaxation is the number one strategy for dealing with stress. And so that's what I want to do today. I kind of want to end this on that note, is doing a breathing exercise today. We've been talking about stress. We've been learning healthy coping mechanisms. And so uh, I really want this to be uh, really practical, something that we can use and something that we can implement. And so I kind of want to end with this, is with a breathing exercise. So if we can all do this together, just make sure that you're in an environment that's free from distraction, um, where you can really tune into yourself, tune into how you're feeling, be mindful of your breathing. And that's what we want to do here, is close with this breathing exercise. And so this breathing awareness relaxation will help guide us to focus on each stage of the breath as we begin to breathe slowly and gently. And so let's begin. I know often I open with this, and I thought today, with talking about the stress, this would be a good way for us to learn a tool that we can use, when we do feel overly stressed. It's a breathing exercise. So let's begin. Throughout this breathing exercise, we want to breathe in a certain way. And so how we want to breathe here with this particular breathing exercise is to breathe in to the count of 4. Then we want to hold for the count of 3, and then breathe out to the count of 5. So it goes like this. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do that again. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do that again. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do that again. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And continue to breathe at this slow pace. Just being mindful of the breath. We're being mindful of our in breath. We're holding and then being mindful of the out breath. And that pause is really right there in between those with the in breath and the out breath. Just continue to breathe at this slow pace. And while you're breathing slowly, I'll direct your breathing awareness to different stages of the breath. Focus all of your attention on each stage I mentioned. First, notice the breath as it enters your nose. Notice each time you breathe in, the way the breath feels on your nostrils. Feel the breath as it passes through your nasal passages and down behind your throat. Where does the air go next? Feel each time you inhale, the breath passing down your windpipe. Feel the breath going down. Feel the breath going down. Notice where the air enters your lungs. Allow your breathing awareness to deepen the feeling of relaxation you are experiencing. Feel the air expand your lungs with each in-breath. Feel your lungs expand and relax, expand and relax, expand and relax. Now notice with the exhale, notice the exhalation phase of breathing. Observe as the air leaves your lungs and begins to travel upward. Focus your attention on that moment of each breath. Now turn your attention to the breath traveling up and out through your mouth. Feel the breath in your throat, your mouth, and across your lips. Notice each breath as a whole now. See how the breaths flow like waves. Fist in, and then pause, and then out, and then pause. Notice the pauses, these rests between the breaths. Now as you relax, you can count your breaths as they continue to flow gently. Count 10 breaths. When you are finished counting your breaths, notice how calm and relaxed you are. See how regular your breathing has become, how calm your breathing is. And then when you are ready to return to your day, you can reawaken your body and return to the present. I'll count to 5. With each number, you can become more and more alert, reaching full alertness when I reach 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope this has helped you to learn some of the healthy coping mechanisms, way that we can manage our stress. Felt like it was important to talk about that today, about how we can be better equipped to handle our stress. And I hope that you feel a little bit more relaxed now just by being here and tuning in today, by practicing the pause. I hope that you all have a good rest of your Wellness Wednesday, and hope to see you next time. Be well.